Hey there, I'm Lucas, and today we talk about this little light, the Andycine Boling BL-P1 Vlogger Edition, or something like that. This little light features a wide balance range from 2500 up to 8500 Kelvin, which is really quite a range. It of course also features a funky RGB mode, this also with some added pop that we will talk about later in the review. And it also has some effects modes, which I find quite interesting, and we will also talk about them later. Of course, this light is tiny, so the output is not immense. But of course, this is no key light for your scene. So I personally think this is something like the Victorinox of video lighting. So basically the Swiss Army knife for a variety of situations. In comparison, it's around the size of my phone, actually a bit smaller. I mean, I don't have the biggest or newest phone, but even considering the mounting options on top, it's actually smaller than my phone, which is quite impressive. It also shipped in this little box, which totally looks like a smartphone box from these days. So the body of this light has no mounting points. They're all on the silver part here on the side. And this one can be folded in many directions. So all around the silver mounting part we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 1/4-inch threads. So the silver arm here is completely friction based. So you don't have to set a screw yourself, it will just work. Of course a connection like this can get loose over time, but I thought about that and we will talk about it in a minute. What I really personally like is that this light is finally able to stand on its own with the help of this little silver arm here. This is something that many lights don't have. For example, the light coming from over there is literally the little RGB Andycine light that I reviewed earlier put on a tripod. With this, I wouldn't need that. We can use the integrated hot shoe mount, and this is a single screw design, so it will always be a little bit wiggly. So while this isn't perfectly solid, it's good enough. So you know I'm not a big fan of on-camera usage of light, because the light you get from this is really harsh and not that nice. But with this light, we can actually set it up in funky ways. Like we could use it like this. Imagine you're filming someone on a party or somewhere, and on your live you have some sort of white wall, a reflector or whatever, and you could shine directly onto something else. Or I could set it up like this and get it a bit more out of the camera angle. I think this is a really versatile thing, because it's also very fast and easy to just adjust it how you like it. Or if you're filming in a really dark cave, you can set it up like this to see the buttons of your camera. So this light has an integrated battery, and this is always with pros and cons. The biggest con obviously is that we cannot change the battery when this one is running out. This light gets charged over a USB-C, and you can use it while charging. So in a worst case scenario, you could just power this light from your battery plate or a power bank and be done with it. One of the big pros though is this light can be incredibly small and incredibly light. It weighs around 260 grams. So in the end it's just a tad heavier than a normal NPF 750 battery, which is quite impressive. So the battery life on this thing is pretty interesting. The manual says that it runs for 140 hours. And I can admit it does, but only at the setting of 2500 Kelvin. At 2500 Kelvin, the lowest setting, at 100% brightness in this mode, I really got the 140 minutes. However, when I set it to the other end, 8500 kelvins, it lasted longer. At 100% 8500 kelvins, I got flat 3 hours, so 180 minutes, so 40 minutes more than in the lowest setting. And then I got to the exact middle of these both LEDs, which is 5500 Kelvin, the typical photographic daylight setting. In this mode, both LEDs are running at roughly 50%. So I got the exact average of both values, 160 minutes at 100% 5500 kelvins. And then I got to the RGB mode. So obviously the RGB mode uses an entirely different set of LEDs, which seem to consume a lot less energy than either of the other two LEDs. In this mode I was able to drive the light at 100% for 6 hours. Yes, 6 hours, 360 minutes. Insane. But at some point the battery will be empty. And then you can charge it over the USB port I mentioned earlier. And just like many smartphones, it supports the Quick Charge 3 technology, QC 3.0. So charging this one is really quick. And the cool thing is you may already have a lot of chargers around your house or even in your car which support this Quick Charge standard. On top we have a little switch. On the bottom of the side, we have a wheel to set the intensity of a light. And this one does not run from like 10 to 100%. We can really dim this down to up to 1%. At 1%, you can see there's light coming out, but it's not really shining bright in any way. I think it's always a nice addition when we can set it really, really low. Above the wheel, we have some sort of jog dial wheel. So it's not really turnable, but we can push and hold it in one direction and it will flip back. This we can adjust the white balance of the light when we are in the white mode. We can also press this wheel, but in this mode it won't do anything. On top, we can switch the modes. If I press it once, I get into the RGB mode. Now, the wheel on the bottom will still adjust the intensity of the light. The jog wheel will now set the different color temperatures. On the back here, we have also a little strip which indicates at which value we will find the desired color. So it's a little guideline, so to say. Now, one of my favorite features of this light. So you may remember the last time I reviewed an RGB light, I was kind of concerned that I cannot change the saturation of the RGB mode. When I push the jog dial, I switch the mode and then I can actually decrease the saturation of the RGB level. How great is that? Yet something we have to consider here is the way these kind of LEDs work. As the name already says, these RGB LEDs are basically consisting of three components, red, green and blue. So let's say I'm in the red mode, and when I now turn down the saturation, what happens is that green and blue just get brighter. The problem here though is that these RGBs are never perfectly balanced. So when you really have all components at the same brightness, what you basically get is not perfect white. What you will get is more like rosé. So it's not really perfectly white light then. Of course, this is a flaw in the technology, but personally I don't use the RGB mode when I need white light. I use this when I need a subtle color tint, and for this it's just perfect. Finally, not only the bright, overly saturated colors, also a little bit subtle, a little bit desaturated. I love it. When we then press the top button once more, we get into the effects mode. And the effects mode is really quite something. So basically we have three categories of effects. Now when we turn the jog dial, we change the effect within the category. When we push it, we change the category. So first category, this one is awesome, you already saw it. So this is basically some sort of thunderstorm mode. So the B value in this one is the same, but faster. So the last one here is also pretty cool. It's some sort of TV emulation. I think it could use some color, but still, I would, awesome. Next category. So this one is switching colors, just fading. Next one. It switches colors, but faster. Next one. This is some sort of candlelight effect. I mean, isn't it great? Last category. So, police car, literally. This is what it should be. In pursuit of suspect, west on Hall Road. Officer is in need of assistance from animal control. Next effect. This one is an ambulance. I don't know where in the world this is an ambulance. At least, I mean, in Germany, all ambulance is just blue, you know? But I don't know where you live, and maybe the ambulance looks like this then. And last one is a fire truck. It's the same. In Germany, this doesn't work as a fire truck, but still, I really appreciate the effort. So you may not take this really seriously, but I really love these effect modes because I think it's just ingenious. It's flashy. Of course, I mean, you wouldn't use this often. I would not use this often, but I think it's really an interesting thing, especially something like the thunderstorm mode. I think what they are mostly interested in is how is the quality of the light. So this light claims quite a bit when it comes to CRI and TLCI, so let's have a look at this. Let's talk about brightness first. The light claims to deliver 1480 lux, but only at half a meter. At 2500K, we get a little more at around 1530 lux. At 8500, we even get more, roughly 1670 lux. At 5500K, we get around 1640 lux. What we can also see though is that at this setting the lamp doesn't hit the temperature exactly and is actually a bit colder. That is not unusual and can be seen in a lot of lights. The same happens at 3200K, where we actually get 3330K at around 1630 lux. Not too far off, but something to keep in mind. At 1 meter the brightness doesn't look as great anymore, but this is to be expected of course. At 2500K we sit around 290 lux, while at 1500K we sit a bit higher, around 350 lux. Now looking for the actual quality, the light surely knows how to deliver. At 2500K we are greeted with a CRI of 97.1 and a TLCI of whopping 98. When we switch to 8500K, this changes a bit, with a CRI of 93.1 and a TLCI of only 87.7. At 5500K we improve a lot again. A CRI of 94.7 and a TLCI of 93.4 is surely nothing to shake a stick at. When we set it to 3200K, this improves again to a CRI of 94.5 and a TLCI of 97.4. It's obvious that we get the better quality from the warm LEDs in use. Luckily, shooting at the cold end of 8500K is not that usual of a setting, and while all other settings are much better, a TLCI of 87.7 is still a completely usable result. What would a light review be without the flicker test? In my tests, the flicker was the same for the warm and the cold LEDs, so I'm just showing 8500K here. With LEDs we get flicker mostly when dimming the light. The first time I encountered flicker was at 50% brightness with a 1/10,000th of a second shutter. At 100% brightness, even 1/16,000th of a second won't flicker. With these values, I see no scenario where flicker would actually cause any kind of issue. We already see the hot shoe or cold shoe mount for this light, and the other valuable accessory that we get here is this little bag here, and I like this. It's really the Swiss Army knife thing, you know, you have these little straps, you can get it to your belt or something and just have it always on you. And when I said earlier that I wanted to show you something later with the connections here, underneath this little Velcro strap here we have an Allen key, always with us with this bag. And this Allen key is of course the size of the screws on the side here, so if they get loose over time you can just screw it tight again. Such a simple but such an effective design, I love it. One thing that you may have already noticed but I really have to mention is the diffusion of this light. So you can see we have a slight diffusion in front of our LEDs, but not very much. You can clearly see the LEDs through. And at full power, of course, what we get from this light is multiple shadows in case our object is close to a wall. So this is the standard thing that we get with lots of LEDs. In that case, we would have to diffuse this light much more, but then of course the output would be a lot lower. So I think it's time for my conclusion. I think you already noticed that I'm pretty much sold on this little light. Of course, the light output itself is not immense, but this thing is so versatile and so good to have at hand. RGB to match an existing color, for the saturation decrease that you command, and even the effects. I mean, you may think it's cheesy, but I really dig this because this is handy stuff that you might need sometime. And I think the amazing light quality paired with the RGB, with adjustable saturation and these slight little effects makes it this perfect little Swiss Army knife of filmmaking light. And this is why I can wholeheartedly recommend this little light. Great little companion. I won't give this away anytime soon. So thank you for watching. I hope to see you next time, and bye bye.